Welcome to No Longer Conformed. I'm Erik Garthe, and we are studying I Will Build My Church, a series on Jesus church building. In this session, we'll look at Nehemiah chapter 2, verses 11 to 20, leadership and church building. Most Christians want to see their church grow. Certain things are key to church growth. Persistent prayer is foundational, and leadership is also very important. Positive leadership is the primary catalyst of growth. Leadership at its best was seen in Abraham, Joseph, Moses, David, Elijah, and of course, Jesus Christ. Another excellent leader was Nehemiah. Let's read our text in Nehemiah chapter 2, beginning with verse 11. So I came to Jerusalem and was there 3 days. Then I arose in the night, I and a few men with me. I told no one what my God had put in my heart to do at Jerusalem, nor was there any animal with me except the one on which I rode. And I went out by night through the valley gate to the serpent well, and the refuse gate, and viewed the walls of Jerusalem, which were broken down, and its gates, which were burned with fire. Then I went on to the fountain gate and to the king's pool, but there was no room for the animal under me to pass. So I went up in the night by the valley and viewed the wall. And then I turned back and entered by the valley gate, and so returned. And the officials did not know where I had gone or what I had done. I had not yet told the Jews, the priests, the nobles, the officials, or the others who did the work. Then I said to them, you see the distress that we are in, how Jerusalem lies waste, and the gates are burned with fire. Come and let us build the wall of Jerusalem, that we may no longer be a reproach. And I told them of the hand of my God, which had been good upon me. And I told them, and also of the king's words that he had spoken to me. So they said, let us rise up and build. And then they set their hands to this good work. But when Sanballat the Horonite, Tobiah the Ammonite official, and Geshem the Arab heard of it, they laughed at us and despised us and said, what is this thing that you're doing? Will you rebel against the king? So I answered them and said to them, the God of Israel himself will prosper us. Therefore, we, his servants, will arise and build, but you have no heritage or right or memorial in Jerusalem. First, positive leadership is perceptive. Look at chapter 1 and verse 3. And they said to me, the survivors who are left from the captivity in the province and are there in great distress and reproach. The wall of Jerusalem is also broken down, and its gates are burned with fire. When he received news that the city was in bad shape, how did Nehemiah respond? Well, he spent time with God. He prayed, he waited. And then he was motivated to do something. Look at chapter 2 and verse 5. And I said to the king, if it pleases the king, and if your servant has found favor in your sight, I ask that you send me to Judah, to the city of my father's tombs, that I may rebuild it. Leadership trainer John Maxwell teaches that vision requires 3 elements. Must see it clearly, that's focus. Must say it continuously, that's articulation. And you must show it creatively, that's transmission. Nehemiah was very perceptive. He considered the risks and he factored in faith, but most of all, he didn't limit God. Look at chapter 2 and verse 20 of our text. So I answered them and said to them, the God of heaven himself will prosper us. Therefore, we, his servants, will arise and build, but you have no heritage or right or memorial in Jerusalem. Second, positive leadership is proactive. Look at verse 17 of chapter 2. And then he said to them, you see the distress we're in, how Jerusalem lies in waste, and its gates are burned with fire. Come, let us build the wall of Jerusalem, that we may no longer be a reproach. Nehemiah demonstrated initiative. He had a God-given vision to build. He initiated action toward that vision, and he didn't wait around for something to happen. The Chinese proverb says, those who say it cannot be done should not get in the way of those who are doing it. Missionary William Carey said, believe great things of God, attempt great things for God. Nehemiah prepared the people for something great, and then he called them to commit to it. But commitment can be tiresome, and you tend to get weary, especially if you can't see the actual results of the task. Women working in the parachutes, in the factories, sewing parachutes during World War II, dealt with this problem. How did they stay motivated? They reminded themselves that those parachutes might be worn by their husbands, by their brothers, by their sons. And then third, positive leadership is personal. Being personal means you must be interactive. Someone called it giving people your ear, your EAR. E, encouragement. A, appreciation. R, recognition. People don't follow programs. They follow leaders who inspire. What is it that makes people act? John White says, it is a vision that stirs them to reckless hope of something greater than themselves. Hope of fulfillment that they had never before dared to aspire to. And then fourth, positive leadership is persuasive. Look at chapter 4 and verse 14. Listen, persuasiveness is all about motivation. What did Nehemiah do when opposition came? He talked to the people. Chapter 4, verse 14. And I looked and arose and said to the nobles, to the leaders, and to the rest of the people, do not be afraid of them. Remember the Lord, great and awesome, and fight for your brethren, your sons, your daughters, your wives, and your houses. The key is that you must be persuaded about something yourself, and then you'll want to persuade others. Paul talks of this motivation in his second letter to Corinth, 2 Corinthians chapter 5, verse 11. Knowing, therefore, the terror of the Lord, we persuade men. But we are well known to God, and I trust are well known in your consciences. John Maxwell said, you are not leading if no one is following. An old Chinese proverb says, he that thinketh he leadeth, and no one followeth, only taketh a walk. And then fifth, positive leadership is positive. Chapter 6 and verse 3, there are three words important to positive leadership: confident, decisive, and optimistic. Confident, just believing, knowing that you can do it. Decisive, making the right decisions and making decisions. And then optimistic, just trusting and believing that it's going to work out. Nehemiah refused to be sidetracked by opponents. The work was nearly finished, and they were still trying to attack. So in chapter 6 and verse 3, it says, so I sent messengers to them saying, I am doing a great work so that I cannot come down. Why would the work cease while I leave it and go down to you? They wanted him, they were trying to slow things down, distract things, by inviting Nehemiah to come and meet with them. And he says, no, I can't leave the work. This work needs to be done. Why should I put it aside and come meet with you? Listen, Satan attacked at near completion of the task. Look at chapter 6 and verse 9. For they all were trying to make us afraid, saying, their hands will be weakened in the work, and it will not be done. Now, therefore, God, strengthen my hands. Through positive leadership, the job was finished. And when it was all over, there was a celebration. Look at chapter 8 and verse 10. Then he said to them, go your way, eat the fat, drink the sweet, and send portions to those for whom nothing is prepared. For this day is holy to the Lord. Do not sorrow, for the joy of the Lord is your strength. A church that Jesus is building must have positive leadership with a spirit of love, a spirit of joy, a spirit of fellowship, and a spirit of excitement. Nehemiah knew just what had to be done to accomplish God's plan, and he did it. Look at Hebrews chapter 12, verses 1 through 3. Therefore, we also, since we are surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses, let us lay aside every weight and the sin which so easily ensnares us, and let us run with endurance the race that is set before us, looking unto Jesus, the author and finisher of our faith, who for the joy that was set before him endured the cross, despising the shame, and he sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. For consider him who endured such hostility from sinners against himself, lest you become weary and discouraged in your souls. Let me ask you, are you positive about God's work? You have a great day.